My name is Katie Stroud, and I'm here with Joe Ganci, and we are here because we are both going to be attending the Training Conference 2017 in San Diego in just a few short days here. And I was looking at the schedule, and I noticed that my friend Joe is presenting at the very same time that I am, Monday morning, January 30th at 8 a.m. And he's got a pretty compelling session going on. I've got one too, and we just wanted to set the record straight about which one you should attend. So before we get into that, I'd like to introduce my friend Joe. He's pretty cool, but I'll let you tell you that himself.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, this is me, Joe Ganci, and for those who don't know me, I've been doing this a heck of a long time. I think I started before Katie was born. 34 years now. At any rate, I've been creating e-learning all that time.
I was born.
Oh, good, a little baby. And I love what I do. I love e-learning. I love everything about it, and I also love science fiction. And I had a revelation one day in which I was thinking, wow, all these great ideas that come out of science fiction can certainly be applied to e-learning. That's what my session's all about, and it's going to be a very not hands-on, it's going to be a very practical session too.
Okay, that's pretty good. Practical, hands-on, e-learning, all good stuff, all things we need to know about. My session is about using the framework of a story to find the real stories in the workplace, real stuff, not science fiction. And we're going to learn about actual process and tools and learning about what we need to do to get people engaged. So, Joe, why should people attend your session and not mine?
Well, let's talk about, first of all, stories, okay? What is science fiction if not stories? And no, they're not all fiction, in fact, because many times, well, of course, it's science fiction, but many times what science fiction was yesterday is science today. And what the stories that are most compelling in these science fiction books and short stories and movies are those that actually apply to us today. That's why we love them so much, because we really relate to what's going on. Otherwise, why would we watch them, right? The truth is that in the workplace, a lot of things happen that seem sometimes stranger than fiction. And certainly science fiction has not a monopoly on the idea, but has a ton of great ideas that, in fact, become science, as I said. The idea of satellites, the idea of submarines, the idea of everything that we have today, in fact, started way a long time ago when people with an imagination thought of these things. And then later scientists picked them up and said, wait a minute, this could be possible. The same is true here in e-learning. We have to first imagine what we're going to be creating before we start picking up that mouse and immediately start to create something. Because more often than not, when we do that, we're not really helping ourselves to come up with the best examples. By thinking it through before we start, that's when the real prize comes. So yes, I totally believe that stories are a great way to go, and so on. But we're going to take stories really and go really dig deep into seeing why these actually work by relating examples that we all know and love from science fiction.
Okay, so do you think that someday people are going to put together a giant planet-sized weapon that's going to float around the sky and blow up planets? Is that what we're talking about?
Well, first of all, I have to correct you there. It's not happening in the future. It happened a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So right. That already happened. Okay, that's gone. All right. So yeah, you didn't show your sci-fi creds right there, and I guess you don't care.
I'm living in the present. If you come to my session, you'll learn about what's happening right now with the people that you're working with. Who are your characters? What problems are they facing? What kind of conflict are we going to work out, and how are we going to get them to success and keep them there? So, yeah, what do you think about that?
Well, I think it's wonderful. I think you're a fantastic presenter and a wonderfully a great instructor overall. I really do. I admire you greatly. I think that if I were to compare myself to you, I'd be only slightly better than you are, just slightly, and probably because of all the experience I've had before you were even born, or yeah, well, about that time. At any rate, let me say this, that ideas that, as I said earlier, are going to be practical. I'm going to be showing you not just fun stuff about, how does this scene from this movie perhaps relate to what we're doing today, but then to show how actually today you can apply those principles using the mechanism that we have now. Last year, I presented for the first time a really thorough presentation with my friend my friend Sherry Larson on using tools that we now are beginning to have: VR, AR, virtual reality, augmented reality, 360 video, and so on, that we're already experiencing now. But sometimes with e-learning, we tend to lag behind all that. Well, I'm going to be showing you how what we have today can be applied, but also the things that are about to come, that are going to come into play over the next year as well, are going to help you create e-learning that really is much more effective.
That's really awesome. To be perfectly honest, Joe, you are awesome. You have a lot of experience, a lot more than I do. Like a lot more.
I'm old, yes. Tell me. Yeah, I know. I'm old.
No, so but I saw that you're going to be doing a pre-conference certification program. Are you going to be talking about any of this sci-fi stuff in there?
No, not really, because that's all creating Adobe Captivate stuff. And yes, I do tend to introduce a little bit here and there, but it's not going to be focused on that at all. That's why I'm doing a separate session on that. Otherwise, well, yeah, I might still do it because pre-con people are always going to be there for the conference and vice versa. And I'm doing it together with Pooja Jaising, who until recently was an evangelist for Adobe and is a fantastic Captivate expert, as am I, and we love to teach together. So that's what we're doing for the pre-con. So that's going to be a really good pre-con. So if nothing else, come to my pre-con and then maybe go to Katie's session. I don't know. But if you can't come to my pre-con, you definitely should consider mine.
Well, I wanted to kind of throw in there too that another reason you should come to my session is that we'll be talking about a little bit about the same thing, to be honest. I mean, Joe's definitely going to get more in detail, but I'm going to be talking about a holistic approach and how you can be innovative and use some of those newer technologies to tell your story. You have the framework of a story, and one of the things that I like to put a focus on is the setting. You always have the setting in a story where it takes place in the Shire or in a galaxy far, far away. The setting is sometimes something that a lot of people forget to include when they're designing their training. So they will design a training that's supposed to take place in a classroom, and then their participants are supposed to remember that stuff when they go out into the field. But the thing is, our memory likes to have a physical space. You know, if you watch The Matrix, you've seen Neo's first introduction to the Matrix is this big white, vast nothingness. Well, if you don't give your participants a setting, a place, then the brain has to build that itself. And once it does, it kind of associates what was learned with that setting. And so the more you can take your training to the field where people are going to need to use the skills, like, operate a Death Star or what have you, then the process that I offer is a good way to make sure that that's included.
Absolutely.
So,
we totally concur on that, because the phenomenon has only recently been understood. That phenomenon of leaving the room to go get something in another room and then forgetting why you went into that other room. The brain actually does like to compartmentalize things per area that you're in. And so when I leave my bedroom and go into the kitchen to get that one thing I was looking for, suddenly the brain is in a different environment and and switches over to that environment as if it were a different planet even. So the point is, we have to fool ourselves and somehow bring what we have from the prior environment into the new one by repeating it over and over, perhaps, or even writing it down or whatever. When it comes to e-learning, as much as possible, we want to mimic the actual environment in which the learner is going to be working after they leave the classroom. And to do that, I have a whole slew of different approaches that I use that I think are very effective. and that people don't often think about. Let me give you an example. Some simple things like, why would you ever have background audio in an e-learning course? Well, the first thing people think of when they think of background audio is music, but music doesn't really help people learn any better when they're trying to learn about office environment or whatever. And plus, in the office, it's not too common that everybody's going to be listening to the same music all the time. So the point is, music is not really a great way to have background audio. But what if you had background audio that mimicked the actual environment? If you were in a hospital setting, having hospital sounds in the background, or in an office setting, the kinds of sounds you might normally hear in an office or a firehouse or whatever it is, whatever the environment is that the learner works in, to have that kind of environment there will help to tie the two together. And that's one tiny example of the kinds of things I like to tell people to do, and that I have done in my own e-learning to help people not forget when they leave the e-learning and go to the actual environment, not forget just as they do at home when they go from the bedroom into the kitchen, but to bring it with them. And to do that, you really have to make that environment as real as possible. In short, the kinds of things that we'd love to do one day perhaps is similar to the holodeck on Star Trek, or to virtual reality that we're envisioning might be the case in 60 or 70 years, that looks absolutely real all the time. And even the 360 video that we see now can feel so real. If you wear, I don't know if you can see it behind me, but I have a VR world behind me, and I've tried some of the really expensive units too, and they're absolutely amazing when it comes to what they can do to help you feel and believe you're in the actual environment. Well, we may not always have that possibility, but we can come a lot closer to it than we currently try to do.
That's true. And there are so many more. There are more and more tools becoming available to help us do this, and it's really scary for people out there trying to figure that stuff out. And we need them.
I was just remembering a cartoon I saw a long time ago of a person being interviewed for a job, and the interviewer asks a multiple choice question. And the point was, when would that ever happen, right? But that's exactly the kind of thing that we seem to always want to give learners, is these multiple choice questions, when in real life they don't get those, unless you couch them in a real environment where they're having to make choices between real world things. It doesn't make sense to just throw that kind of thing out there.
Yeah, that's really important, and I think people still do that because it's the easiest thing to remember. But it's true. I mean, I don't sit there and think about building the stuff that I build and go through a process of asking myself a question with these different multiple answers and which one am I going to choose. So if you want a process overview, something to work with, some variable tools that you can adjust to working with actual people right now in the real world where you're working right now, come to my session. But if you want some in-depth detail about the technology that is making that happen, go to Joe's session. Either way, we're both going to be there, so come and visit us. After we present on Monday, we'll be around to say hi and talk industry stuff. And there's a lot of our other friends that are going to be there too, like Shannon Tipton, Trish Ohl, Sam Rogers, Andrew Hughes. Yeah, so lots of our guys. In fact, Joe, what do you think? Do you think we could get them to come and join us in another live session next week?
Well, we can certainly try. It's a good idea. I think they should get some time themselves to promote themselves. However, right now I'll say without hesitation that you really can't go wrong going to either Katie's or my session. You're going to get a lot out of either one. And as Katie said, we're going to be around, so you can always come and sort of pester us and say, well, I wasn't able to come to your session. Can you cover it with me? Like, yeah, I'll give you the quick summary of it. Sure.
Yeah, we can do that. And what's really awesome about that is that our sessions are kicking off the conference, so you can see us even before you see the keynote. So we can get you primed, get your gears working, and get you thinking ahead of time. I mean, you can think about the content that we're offering, that big framework or that technical overview. that that you can kind of put everything else in that the conference has to offer. And don't forget, on Tuesday evening, they're having a cruise for 40 years. They're celebrating 40 years of doing this. So come and see us there.
Yeah, absolutely. It should be a lot of fun, and it's San Diego, which is beautiful this time of year. And especially if you live in a cold environment, look behind Katie. There's a painting there that kind of mimics a little bit where she is right now, I think.
And that would be Mount Rainier, tallest.
Yeah, of course, yes.
Yeah.
That's snow, by the way. So yeah, getting out of the cold is a nice thing to do
Yeah, you should do that. So that is so the pre-conference certificate programs, they're starting on January 27th, and then the conference starts on January 30th and goes until February 1st. So see you there.
Be there. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.